You're watching Understanding Bigfoot. Why understand Bigfoot? Because we know they're real. Now, let's start understanding Bigfoot with your host, Mike Scott.
Thank you once again, Sean Seaball. Mike Scott with you, coming to you from Cape Girardeau, Missouri, southeast Missouri. Becky Pepper with us from Nocona, Texas, as always, and Susan Perez, the director of the CMO, standing Southeast Missouri Bigfoot and Cryptid Research Group, is here with us out of Cape Girardeau as well. Rick Taylor is back with us for part two, as promised. We're going to talk to Rick here in just a second. Susan, before we get into Rick's story, and we don't want to miss that one, tell us, coming up here on Saturday, March the 18th, the quarterly luncheon for the CMO Bigfoot and Cryptid Research Group here in Cape Girardeau. So, if our friends from Washington State, our our friend from India that regularly watches the program wants to just get a
Right.
plane and book us some reservations and fly into Cape Girardeau, Missouri to meet us. Tell us about that luncheon.
They would love it. We just acquired a young lady from Australia, which has fabulous information on the Yowie. But no, our quarterly meeting is going to be Saturday, March the 18th at 1 o'clock at La Luna Mexican Restaurant here in Cape Girardeau, Missouri. And we just have a great time. We have some new people coming. So far on our group on the Facebook page, we have 875 members now, which I just can't believe it. I mean,
875 members on a regional
right.
directional Facebook page. It's not like we're recruiting nationally and internationally, although they
No,
migrate to us. We
right.
have some regulars from overseas that watch the program and they comment and they give
Absolutely.
us encouragement. We really appreciate them and look forward to hearing from them. It makes my day.
Absolutely.
So,
It's just a great group. We stress the fact that you respect everybody's opinion, even if they're different from yours, and we're here to learn from each other. And I think
ex-
that's what's made a difference because if somebody doesn't follow the rules, they're gone. So we have a
Exactly
wonderful
right.
group.
So, thank you for doing what you do in our community, Susan,
Thank
for
you.
the movement of Bigfoot and you and I met by chance about the same time Becky had her sighting, and now look, we've got well over 1,200 subscribers to the YouTube channel, and we got guests like Rick Taylor on here to talk to us, and he mentioned
Right.
Charlie Raymond's name. We've had Charlie on, and just about anybody who's everybody, and then average everyday people. If you've had experiences, we'd love to hear from you. Contact me, understandingbigfoot at gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you or comment on the program about your experiences and and um, and and so forth. It's just really, really um, people are wanting to know more and more about what's going on with Bigfoot and Sasquatch, just like we do. When we just got to the point in our lives where, hey, these are real and they're here. We just wanted to learn more and more. Rick, welcome back to the program.
Thank
Welcome.
you. Thank you. It's a
Welcome,
pleasure to
Rick.
be here.
Now, we talked about a lot of things on the previous program, and I held off. You started getting into the situation in Oklahoma, and I stopped you because that we got our own program for that one. So I'm going to turn things over to you, and this incident can be um, Tom Cantrell's book, Sasquatch to Face to Face. You got that to hold up, Becky? I mean, tomcantrell.com. You can find the
Oh,
website.
I've got
Susan
it.
might have it.
you have
There
that
it
one? I was
is.
gonna say I have the other one.
Sasquatch Face to
Can
Face.
you
Yes,
see it?
Now,
there you
this
go.
is one of the incidents, one of the face to face incidents out of that book, and Rick Taylor's, and this is just a wonderful story. So, Rick, floor is yours. Tell us all about it.
Well, I had, had some distant experiences, but I had heard a lot. I had talked to Arla at the Hanobi Bigfoot conference, had run into her several times. A lot that she shared with me sounded really incredible. I won't say unbelievable, but very way out there a little bit, from what I was trying to gather and piece together logically, analytically, forensically. And some of it just, you know, didn't sound kosher, is a good way to put it. But when you study this subject, I can tell you right now, if you do it any length of time, you're going to have some of those "what in the world was that" moments. Okay, I'm just going to tell you the dots don't always connect, but I had heard that she had a lot of activity around her land there in Oklahoma, and she was hosting a Native American drum making workshop, and I wasn't really interested in making the drums, but I did want to come out there and hang out on her property. And I called her and asked her if I paid the entry fee, could I just hang out and kind of freelance on my own, go in the woods around her house there? And she said, "No problem. You're most welcome to." So I want to estimate there were probably 30 people there, different mixed blood, native folks, other people that had no native blood but were interested. And it was a very organized class. They served meals and everything. But I spent the day, instead of being in class, I was out in the woods, trying to discover. And I probably spent 2 full days being run around like a chicken with its head cut off. I'd get a little thump here or a little howl or a little call there, and they were just running me ragged. I wasn't seeing anything. I wasn't creeping up on anything, and uh, got pretty frustrated. And on the end of that second day, or well into the second day, I came over and I was eating lunch and hanging out after we'd eaten lunch before the classes started in that afternoon. And three of the ladies come back in. They had taken a luncheon walk, ate their lunch and then went out and just strolled some of the area around Arla's place. And they came back just excited and gushing that they had just seen a Bigfoot peeking around the tree at them while they sat out there by the creek. And I
And
don't mind.
They didn't come to see Bigfoot.
No, and that was the part that wasn't fair, Mike. I had
No.
spent almost 2 days out there, and these ladies not even looking for one saw one. And
Yeah.
I mean,
How
needless to
does
say, I was
how does
probably
how does
jealous.
that work, Becky?
How does that
Exactly.
work? I don't know.
So
Some people have it, some people don't.
so they took me back out there, and I filmed for about an hour. And I did see movement. Now you got to understand my little jury rig. I had a little RCA small wonder camcorder, and I was using a monocular as a jury rig telephoto, holding it over the front of the mini cam. And I'm looking at things through a little 1x1 LED screen without my reading glasses on. So I did catch movement. But at the time, I'm looking at this in the bright sunlight, this little LED screen later, and I can share you the videos with you. I got about 16 seconds of what was probably a juvenile. But at the time, I didn't know what I had. It was still later that I discovered that part. But anyway, the last night that they were there, there was a fireside service with a lot of native customs with it. I didn't stay for the whole ceremonies, with the drums that the people had made, and it was very stirring, very comforting, and stuff. But I eased out away from the group, and I'm going to estimate Arla had maybe 40 acres clear cut, 30, 40. I'm not good at land area. It was a wide area that was clear cut, but surrounding her property was nothing but thick Oklahoma woods with a lot of underbrush. I mean, thick, hard to navigate. And I would leave the group around the fireside, or I left it, and I went more west, southwest into the woods. And once I got into the woods, I stopped. I scanned with my night vision. At that time, I didn't have a thermal. I had a Gen 1 night vision scope. And I made sure I wasn't being followed. Uh, and uh, Let me back up. I'm missing something. The night before, and before I got the video that afternoon, I had spent a lot of time trying to find these subjects and everything. I was at the end of a logging road, very frustrated. It was turning dark. I was sitting on the tailgate of my pickup. And at some point, I got the feeling I was being watched, that there may be a watcher nearby. Now, I didn't hear anything. They were very silent and discreet, but I think one was close, or at least that's how I felt. And I finally, just out of frustration, said, "Look, I'm not going to hurt you. I'm not here to hurt you. I just want to see you up close where there's no denying. I mean, not from a distance. I want to see you up close." And at that time, one of the attendees that knew where I was coming down the road, and I was out there. I had a walkie-talkie, and they called me on channel 3 or whatever channel we were on or monitoring. And they said, "Rick, I'm coming down the road right now." And they said, "Okay, yeah, I'm out here." So when they got there, they said, "Did you know you were being watched?" I said, "Well, I kind of felt like it." They said, "Oh, no, that grove of trees off to your right, I could see something moving away as I came down the road. You had a watcher." So, okay, well, I didn't see him. But fast forward to the next night, and I left the group. I got in the trees. I didn't want to be followed. I didn't want to be pranked with, and I just had a hunch that somebody might prank with me. And I don't. If there's one thing I have a little patience with, is people that'll get out there and play games. I'm not in this to play games. I want the real thing. And but I didn't know Arla that well. I didn't know all the people there. And like most of them were not there for Bigfoot. I wouldn't put it past one of them to just, want to prank around, throw something at me or something. So I didn't want anybody in the group to know where I was. So I went out kind of southwest, headed south, and then went kind of laterally across that wooded, brushy area over to a place on the southeast corner. And for anybody to follow me, they would have had to have great night vision, and they would have had to have gotten in the woods to even see me with their scope, based on the thick vegetation. And was I 100% sure? But no, but more than likely, nobody knew where I was. And the reason I went over to the southeast side was it was a east tree line east of the fireside service. And Arla said they come to the edge of the tree line and watch when they have ceremonies, drum, beating and, different songs and stuff. So I was on a flanking position, hoping that one of them would come out of the cover, and, voila, I was going to get a night vision video of one. Well, that didn't happen, but I don't know, maybe an hour out there, somewhere in there, I see movement coming out of the woods about 100 yards from me, and I'm all excited. I start videoing, and I'm not sure who or what they are, but as they start coming out of that tree line, they didn't head towards the group, kind of in a perpendicular angle, but they were coming straight towards me. And as they got closer, I could see it was Arla. And I'm watching, and she's getting closer, and she's getting closer. Now, I didn't use a flashlight or anything. I'm out there in pretty dark section of the woods, and she walks right up to me, and I stand up out of the brush, and I said, "Arla, how did you know I was here?" And she says, "They told me you were here." I didn't see her go into that area, but I saw her coming out of the woods. And she came right to me and she said, "They told me you were here." Well, in my mind, I'm thinking, eh, you know, an amazing thing. But I was skeptical at that point. The next thing she said, though, folks, like, I mean, really shocked me. It hit me right between the eyes. She said, "Do you want to go see them?" Okay.
Mm.
What are the chances of me the night before saying, "I want to see you," with nobody else? Well, there was somebody else around, but at the time I didn't think anybody was around.
Right.
What are the chances that she just randomly asks me the next night, "Do you want to go see them?" Okay. I'm thinking, whoa, in my
Mm.
mind, you're good. Skeptical that this might be a prank.
Right.
But I said, well, yeah. So we got up out of my hiding place. We went back to the where the group was gathered. Arla said she was going to take me over to, her meeting place. She doesn't, often take people there, but as she said, they told me they wanted to see me. Okay. And I think it was in direct response to my appeal the night before by myself, frustrated. Okay, you want to
Mhm.
see us? Come on.
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
so so we went to the north side of her clear cut area, probably at least 200 yards from the group. We stopped in that corner. There was about a 5 foot tall wooden fence, to keep the cows in, and I'm leaning, with both elbows on the fence. It's about a 2/3 moon, so out in the bright open area, you could see,
Right.
but you couldn't see into the thick canopy, and
Yeah.
foliage. It was dark in there. But she started calling different names. Okay, owl caller, indigo. Those are the two that I remember. And I start hearing what sounds like a troop coming up out of the creek bottom east of us and coming up through the woods. And it sounds big. It sounds like multiple feet. And it sounded very real and big. They start coming towards us, maybe 200 yards. I don't know. It was a distance, but they were closing fairly fast, not running, but maybe a swift walk. And then I start hearing crunching and crackling coming out of the northeast towards us. And then another group of sounds coming out of the southeast. And altogether, it sounds like a fairly good bunch of people, subjects, or something very heavy, and it sounded very real. And they just started closing the gap. And my mind's thinking, look, if people's pranking here, they're doing an excellent job, because I saw no flashlight, no ambient light filtering anywhere in the woods. And I can tell you right now, uh, walking without a light source in Oklahoma woods, you got to be pretty you got to be pretty brave. And I'm thinking, if this is a prank, they are going overboard on this. So
Right.
anyway, all of those heavy footsteps come to within about 10 feet of breaking that clear area. The fence was probably 10 feet inside the clear cut. They were probably 10 feet on the other side where they stopped. They never broke cover. So I'm estimating 20 feet from us. Now, Arla had told me no cameras, no flashlights, don't put anything up to your face. They don't like that. Don't do that without asking. And they all come crunching up and came to a stop. Sounded very real. And I asked her, I said, can I use my night vision? I want to see what's over there, man. Whatever it is sounds big. And I don't do vulnerable very well, folks. I really don't. Okay. And so she said, yeah, go ahead. So I had it in a holster on my belt, and I pulled it out and tried to turn it on, and it wouldn't energize. The lights wouldn't come on. And it was a new scope. I had just been using it for the last several nights, had no problems. the night vision wouldn't work. And I tried a couple of times, and then I looked at Arla and I said, it's not working, and she just smiling, like the way Arla does. And then she goes, try it now. Okay. I'm just telling you what happened. So I started to switch. I switched and it came right on. It energized. Okay. My first thought was, is this woman a witch or what? What? I mean, I couldn't connect the dots how anybody could have affected my night vision scope. I'm just telling you what happened, folks. I don't know. I just know that it wouldn't work. And
Yeah.
then when she said, try it now, it did work. And I lifted it up. Well, look, night vision is not an X-ray scope. And they were too deep into foliage. I couldn't see anything but leaves, thick
Right.
wall of leaves and branches. I couldn't see anything. And I told her, I said, I can't see anything. Clicked it off, put it back in my holster. And Arla said, well, she said, do you want to go in and see them now? I've told you folks, I don't do vulnerable very well. And whatever was back there hiding in the brush sounded very big. If she would have been a man, okay, I'd have probably said, I'm good. I'm cool. I'm good. We don't need to go in there. But I'm being brutally honest. My testosterone pride wouldn't let me wimp out in front of a woman. Okay. She was not afraid. She would go in there. And so I kind of real meekly and reluctantly said yes.
She came from in there, so you're
Well,
like,
I know, I'm just saying, if she'd have been a dude, I'd have
yeah,
probably said, no, I'm good. I'd have
no, we're
begged
good
off
right
on
here.
that. Exactly. So we go in the gate. We turn right back closer towards the group, by maybe 50, 75 yards. And we come to a wide parted out trail area that was obviously clear. I want to say the undergrowth was probably waist to chest high on both sides. Above that, a thick canopy of trees. And the moment we turned left into that brush line, or foliage line, it turned almost pitch black. That 2/3 moon didn't penetrate anything in there. And I could just barely see the back of Arla's head. Okay. And I scooted up close to her 6 o'clock because she's their friend and I didn't want to get lost out in there. I mean, I stayed right behind her. And as we moved in down that trail, I could hear stuff moving on both sides of me. I mean, there was movement on both sides.
So what
And
you're hearing is not just one Sasquatch. You're
right
hearing a
hearing
handful of
exactly. And I didn't know that I had my little camera, that RCA camcorder out. And in my nervous fidgeting, I was hitting the photo button. It was clicking pictures as I held it kind of like, in front of me, just fidgeting. I was snapping pictures. And I don't know if Tom put it in his book, the facial shape in the brush looking at me. If not, I can send you the pictures,
okay,
Mike,
yeah,
and we
yeah.
can look at them, or you can show them later. But I actually clicked a picture of one big guy looking, and he's within arms grabbing distance. Okay. I later saw it when I was going through
You
my
didn't know it
mem.
at the time.
I didn't know it at the time, but we got about 100 yards in, and there was a trail that intersected that main trail, and we turned left down that trail, probably went maybe 20, 30 yards, and it came to a dead end where there was about a 30-foot radius of clear cut. Okay, there was grass, there were no stumps. It was a cleared out area. Out of the trees around the perimeter were bags of cornmeal, different things goodies that she would leave there for them. and she had it in baggies tied so that the varmints wouldn't get it. 8-foot subject had no problem reaching up and reaching in, but it'd be tough for a raccoon or something
Right.
like that to get to the goodies. But she had two folding chairs there, which I didn't sit down. I was still listening to all this stuff moving around
Oh
us.
yeah.
But as we move to the north corner of this circle, there's movement in the brush, and she's just calling names, and they're there, but I don't see anything yet. And as clear as I'm talking to you, y'all now and your audience now, was it English? I can't tell you that. I don't. It was just a clear thought, and it was, why are you carrying a gun? Okay, that went through my mind, and it shocked the tar out of me. Uh, I'm honorably retired, and I had a pistol, 45, automatic, tucked away. Nobody would ever see it. Nobody would ever know. And I thought, Rick, you're losing it, man. You're hearing voices in your head, and I kind of doubted. I mean, I thought it was the anxiety. I thought I was losing it. I mean, the thing is, when these subjects are close to you, unless you've ever experienced it, the atmosphere is like charged with electricity or something. It's super super intense, and some people panic, they lose it, and I was close to losing it because this was new to me, but I'm hearing this voice and I'm doubting it. And it was like they knew I was kind of wrestling with this, and the intensity, the clarity, the emphasis like multiplied tenfold, and it came back through my head. Why are you carrying a gun? Now, the second time it happened, I immediately knew they were talking to me. Okay. And I have since had that happen again, but not with that doubtfulness, and intensity. I know what it was. It's happened a number of times since then. But anyway, that second time in my head, I think it. Could I tell you how to do it? No, but
Right.
for that time, I knew how to reply to them, and it wasn't just a thought, it was communication. And maybe it's a primal instinct that we've all had and lost, in our mechanized, industrialized, life of Riley. Maybe in our past as people, we had that ability and have lost it or don't use it. I don't know. But I answered them and I said, it is a tool of protection that I carried on my job. I've carried it around my close friends and family, and I will not hurt you now. I will not hurt you with it now. And right after that, the words came, step away from Arla. Okay. Now that the first thought was, they're fixing to whack me. I'm fixing to get snuffed here, because step
I'm,
away from Marla. And I just looked over at her and I said, they're telling me to step away from you. Now, she didn't get a shocked expression. She was smiling and having a great time. She just kind of looked over at me and said, well, do what they tell you to do. She wasn't a bit shocked,
no.
So I can tell you, I've been in life and death situations. I've escaped death on a number of occasions, and I can't compare me moving away from her being easier or it, it was one of the hardest things I ever did, was to turn away from her, their friend, and walk into those woods by myself. But that's what they told me to do. So I turned away and I headed back to the intersection where the two trails met. I stopped there and I looked down the trail where we had come from because I wasn't sure which way to turn. And then I looked to my left, deeper down the trail, closer to the creek. And when I turned and looked down that trail, about 50 feet down the trail, there was a big tree, big, thick tree. And stepping out behind it, we later judged him to be about 12 feet tall, but a big alpha male. And the way they used the light, it was orchestrated. The moonlight, there was a gap that illuminated that trail right beside the tree, and this big alpha male stepped right out into the moonlight, and I could clearly see him. And definitely male, big muscular, frame. And he was looking at me, and he was swaying side to side like this. And Arla said, "Do you see him? He's down the trail there." So I guess she could see from her position. And I said, "Yes, I see him. He's swaying." And at that point, Arla said, "Sway with him." Now, folks, I don't know what the significance of that is. Still don't. I've never gotten an answer. Maybe it's a salutation move. I don't know, but I started swaying with him, matching his side to side shifting of weight. And the moment I started swaying with him, to my right off the trail, I could hear brush moving. And again, in a gap of light, a break in the canopy, this what I would consider maybe a young male juvenile because he wasn't taller. I'm 6 feet, and I don't remember looking down at him nor looking up at him. It was just kind of a straight look. But he come up out of the brush, and I could see maybe just below his chest upward, okay, his upper body. And when he came up out of the brush, I'm looking at him, and I remember seeing his facial expressions. I mean, his eyes widened, his jaw dropped like he was getting a good close look at me. And my eyes widened and dropped, and we just sat there gawking at each other. I mean, I was getting a good look at something that looked like something out of a Steven Spielberg movie, but it was breathing and it was alive. I mean, never saw anything like that in my entire life. And every so often, that young one, he'd look back at the big alpha male like, "Daddy, look," or something. He didn't say anything. They held their position. I didn't hear stinking. I mean, I didn't smell any stink or anything, that was repulsive. But about that time, now she was definitely female, stepped out from a tree about the same distance from me on the trail. I could see she was obviously female, and she's looking at me. And now I've got two of them. At that point, being a father and now a grandfather, I realized that Big Daddy was letting his young come up and get a close look at me. Immediately, all of my fear and anxiety left because I realized for a parent to trust their children close to something is an expression of trust. They were trusting me. And that lack of anxiety didn't last too long. There was a 8 foot. I didn't see her very well because there was not really a sliver of light there, but I noticed another 8 foot subject between the 12 foot alpha male and the juvenile female that was about the same height as me. I'm figuring that was mother. Now there was other movement in there. I didn't look behind me or anything, but my relaxed state soon vanished because I glanced down on the trail in front of that young female. I could make out a head. It wasn't in the canopy, kind of occluded it being clearly illuminated, but I could make out a small, I'd estimate about a 3 foot tall shape and moving around just like a toddler in front of the young female. And now I'm kind of focused on that, trying to figure out, is this a baby, is this a toddler? and it stopped just kind of wandering around. I remember it turning, it tilting its head back, and it notices me. And I'm watching it, and all of a sudden, that little baby, that toddler, bolts down the trail towards me from about 10 feet away with its arms raised. I could see its arms,
He's what?
hairy arms, and I could
Yeah.
see its face. Look, folks, having these things close to you intense, but the thought of a hairy little one latching onto me was
Mhm.
more. I'm sorry, my biggest fear was it doesn't really know who I am, and when it gets close to me, it's going to scream out in fear, and then Big Daddy's going to come down the trail and break me in half. That was my first thought. Does it really know who I am? But
Exactly.
fortunately, that young female lunged out forward and caught it under one arm when I estimate it to be about 2 feet away from me. Now, I
Mhm.
hadn't been over, I hadn't extended my arms. I just kind of froze, not knowing what I was gonna do, man. I mean, it it was intense, and she pulled it back. Well, when that happened, I looked over at Arla and I said, "I'm ready. I've seen enough. Let's go. Don't let that." I didn't say that, but don't let the little one get me. You know, but they held their position. They weren't threatening. I mean, I got a good look at three of them. And the baby and probably mother. I didn't get a real clear look, but I got a good clear look at the big alpha male and the two juveniles that were close, and the baby getting very close, but I didn't get a great look at it. But it was about 3 foot tall. At that point, Arla came back down the trail and we started to leave. And at that point, that big alpha male, I remember looking back, and I can send you, I turned on when he started giving the owl call. After the first owl call, I hit my video camcorder, the little mini, got a great recording of him giving a very authentic barred owl call. I mean, it sounded very real, except for the fact it was coming out of about four JBL woofer speakers. It wasn't a little 8-pound bird, but it was rocking the
Very
forest.
loud.
Very loud, very full. The resonance filled the woods, but the recorder doesn't do the resonance justice. But I saw him giving that. He just you know back and let it rip. And I've had that happen to me multiple times in multiple states, one of which I was in Wisconsin. And I said, "Hey, I know you're here." I'd left the group. I said, "I know you're here. Give me a sign." Within about 5, 10, 15 seconds, perfect barred owl call came out. Of course, the others, "Oh, there's an owl here." I said, "It's on the forest floor." You ever see an owl, call out from the
Right,
forest floor? And
right.
they go, "Well, no," but I just later I said, "Thank you," and
Yes.
that's happened. I've got audio of it and night vision. Those are other stories, but I left the forest that day, or left Arla's, knowing these things were not monkeys, that they have family groups, and it was a whole paradigm shift with me. And that's when I started doing serious studies. And I haven't been disappointed, folks. I've had them, in the other episode we taped. I've had a cognizant response in Cherokee from them. Uh, they're Look, the woods have been their home for many years. Uh, I don't say every one of them are harmless or that you won't be endangered. They're so much like us, folks. There's areas of our cities, of our country, where you're perfectly safe. There's other areas you don't want to even see the human beings in that area because they're dangerous.
Right.
My thought is here, they're very much like us in the fact. What I do know is that a stable family group or clan will not tolerate a troublemaker among their midst. They'll either kill them or drive them out to a remote area. If it doesn't feel right, it probably isn't. And I emphasize this to everybody. It's not Disneyland out there. There are other things besides Bigfoot that can injure or kill you.
Right.
And you always have to be aware and have a safety plan in place. Me personally, I've never felt threatened in East Texas, southeastern Oklahoma, northern Wisconsin, Georgia, Kentucky. You know where I've observed these subjects, but at the same time, they do not unconditionally trust us, and in many instances, they don't know the people that are there and they choose not to reveal themselves. They may peek, they may look, but they're not an amusement. They're a people, and I always try to be respectful and courteous towards them, and it's served me very, very well. You know, but that's basically that story. I've got a whole lot more, but any
We'll have to have you back at some point to share some more. But that now was that not worth a part in itself? I mean, ladies,
Yes. Yes. I love, yeah. Thank you for sharing.
you
That's
know,
fascinating.
it's been my experience that there's a wide variation in the appearance of these subjects. Okay, you can't put look. Patty's a good representation as a whole. I've seen subjects that look exactly like her in Texas. Got a whole video of one up in a tree watching our party. And matter of fact, Arla was down there with me when I was recording this. Uh, he was up in a tree, 60 feet up in a tree, watching us from about 508 yards. I think is what the GPS waypoints were. But if you take a grizzled, a homeless guy, unkept, and you compare him with the Dallas Cowboys cheerleader, they look very different. I mean, extremely different. And yet they're both members of the human race as we know it.
sure.
Well, it's the same way with Bigfoot. They get older, they get scraggly, they lose their hair or it gets matted, and they can have a very unusual appearance to them versus a younger female Bigfoot. Very much. I've only smelled the bad smell once, and that was early in my research. That smelled like a wet dog, sewer water, and something dead. But I've also smelled a female. Or I think it was at Arla's place, and there was another time where she must have taken flowers or something and rubbed them on her. It smelled like potpourri. Okay, an earthy potpourri, but it wasn't at all, uh, stinky or repulsive at all.
Hmm.
So I don't know. There's a lot of opinions on that, but yeah, I can tell you some other stories, but we're probably coming up on another
Well,
another hour.
we will save that for another time, folks. I told you that this would be worth a program in itself just to hear Rick's account at Arla Collett's place with that family of Sasquatch. Not everybody gets that experience. Um, not everybody, most don't. the, and incredible. We've read about it, and just to hear it coming from your heart, Rick, it really touches us, and we're so grateful that you came on and willing to share that with us. And
Well, I'm so thankful. If anybody's interested, you Google Richard Taylor Bigfoot. It'll bring you to the links of my book on Amazon. What I can do, if you're interested, Mike, is
yeah,
can I send you video clips of some of my field research, how it kind of unfolds? Is that something you could present
I,
on this?
well, send me the clips, and then we might be able to put together a part three.
Okay.
And,
Yeah.
and send us a link to your book, and we'll put that in the comments section and so forth, so
Okay.
people can
Yeah.
understand to get
I
your
can
book
do
on
that.
that. So
Yeah. I love sharing. My book was really a booklet.
right,
I could write another big book,
you
on that,
can,
and I
yeah,
I may, in time. I'm not retired, like I'm semi-retired. I work for a nationwide engineering company, doing fire and explosion investigations for insurance concerns, but it's an as needed. Like I
right.
said, I'm part time. I'm not on a salary. They pay me very well part time when I'm working, but I just catch the overflow, and it works fine. Gives me something to do. But I'm really, probably my passion is sharing. I was in Georgia year before last. Met Tom Cantrell, hosted that conference. He got sick and couldn't make it, but Arla kind of filled in for him. I was over there at a game preserve, and lightning, bad weather. We stayed in the vehicles till it kind of cleared out. Most people left. Well, I got out and walked and videoed two side peekers watching me, and I had three newbies come up and say, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm watching these big guys." They said, "Really?" I shared my scope with them, and I got an audio of it. It's cool. It really is. They
Share me
got
your info, and we'll put together a part three, a Rick Taylor part three
okay.
program, and
All right.
because my goodness, you're just so much fun to listen to, and and I think Susan and Becky will
I
agree,
agree.
and
Yes, I agree.
It it you well I'm telling you folks, almost every expedition I go on, they're either tapping on my camper shell or, when I go to sleep, I'm sleeping. I'm not jumping up and doing any more research. I'm sleeping, but I've had them I've had them tap on the trailer I was sleeping in, and I said, "Look, I'm
come
tired.
out
Would
and
you
play.
Exactly. And they're respectful. I've asked them, I said, "Please just let me sleep." And they leave me alone. But
Yeah,
it's happened. A guy from Point, Texas. I was in Kentucky, had that happen. His wife didn't come, and he offered, to let me sleep on the sofa in his living room, which I took, better than my camper shell. And I told him the next day, I said, "Did you hear me?" Because I did tap, tap, tap. It woke me up. And I said, "Please let me sleep." He gave me that incredulous kind of stare and statement. Well, the next night we had grilled hamburgers that day, went out on an expedition, came back. He's got a good shower. There were hookups, but man, the camp showers across the street were like out of this world. So he
yeah.
grabbed some stuff. He said, "Hey, Rick, I'm going to go next door and get a shower." He went out the door. I felt the two steps down the trailer, and then it rocked. The door swung open. He come flying back in there and said, "Man, something big just ran away out there." Well, it was picking the hamburger patties out of the grill where we dropped a couple when we grilled our hamburgers. I didn't even look at them, Mike. I just kept typing and downloading stuff on my computer for about 10 seconds. And then I looked over at him and I said, "I told you so." Yeah, we found the tracks and knuckle slides the next day. But yeah, that
Wow.
was his first. Big guy jumps up about 10 feet in
Yeah,
front of
yeah.
him, and he ran one way and the big guy ran the other. But it was cool. It was cool. All right, had fun. I can
Oh
tell
my
you other
goodness.
stories like that. It's
Yes.
cool.
We will have
Yeah.
Rick Taylor back for a part three,
Yes.
and we'll have some more
Looking
info
forward to
because
it.
my goodness, this is incredible stuff. But thanks so much, Rick, for sharing your time with us and being willing to do that.
Thank you, sir.
And Becky and Susan, I'm so glad you guys can make this one, and just just incredible. Rick has
I'm
said it
so
all.
glad
Wonderful
to.
encounter.
Thank
Folks,
you, Rick.
thank
Thank
you,
you.
Sean Seaball, for producing. We'll see you next time on Understanding Bigfoot. Thanks for watching.